Hello, and welcome back to Let's Play Alundra. It's time to take out the boss of Giles' dream, which will look awfully familiar if you've been following this LP. Remember that we failed to beat the boss of Klein's dream for good, and we were just ejected from his dream, so it should follow pretty easily from there. Who will be fighting here in Giles' dream as well. I mean, there's no reason for Melzes to reach back and find any more minions for us to fight when we already failed to save our last villager from this guy. Now, pay close attention to Septimus's warning here. He says that Giles' life is basically hanging by a thread. This means that unlike Klein's fight, where you only took 2 points of damage if Klein was sucked into the soul leech's mouth, if Giles gets sucked in, it's an immediate game over. I mean, it sounds like a bit of a jerk move, but if you remember from Klein's fight, it's actually pretty hard to let Giles get sucked in. You basically have to be trying. If Giles gets pretty close, we didn't really see this behavior in Klein's fight, but if Giles gets too close, he actually will move away. Let's go ahead and burn our 2 fire magic charges, just to show off the actual spell. This guy does take 3 hits now to close his mouth as opposed to 2, but that actually works to your benefit because it means he takes 3 hits from any given magic spell as opposed to the 2 that he would take in Klein's fight. That means you can take off more than half his health just from those 2 castings of the fire magic. I'll show off a little bit of the melee mechanics now that we've actually gotten out of the way, as opposed to just refilling our magic and taking off the other half of his health right now, just to show how the fight would go if you didn't have any magic charges left. Now, the ideal weapon to use, or at least the safe weapon to use, is, as I've been using this far, the Hunter's Bow. It shoots over the slime, so there's no worry about having to worry about getting out of range or anything getting in the way of your shots. And it has effectively indefinite range, so you can just hang out in the back, and you really just want to get into a rhythm of staying by the door, or I should say between Giles and the Soul Leech, and just shooting arrows into his mouth until it closes. Unfortunately, the bow itself is the weakest weapon in the entire game. It's half as strong as the dagger you start the game with. As a result, it takes 80 hits after using the fire magic to kill him with the bow. So let's skip a little bit, cut out about 1.5 minutes of the fight, just skip straight to the end. The fastest way to kill this guy, if you're not going to use magic elixirs and just going to rely on the 2 charges, would be to use the charged sword attack, which is still our strongest melee attack and kills him after 2 uses of the fire spell in about 7 hits, but you're basically asking yourself to take about 14 points of damage by doing that at a minimum, because I would expect that it's very difficult to get off more than 1 charge attack without immediately getting sucked into his mouth. Oh geez, that's a bit of a close call. See, Giles does pull away from the Soul Leech if he's caught very close to the mouth, so you actually have even more time than you think you do. If you're really worried about it, you can just dive in front of him, because if the Soul Leech eats Alundra, it will not eat Giles. And so if you basically just spend the entire fight right next to Giles, right in front, or particularly right between Giles and the Soul Leech, you're basically never at risk of actually directly losing the fight because of one stupid jerk game mechanic. There we go. Finally dead. And I say finally dead, taking into account the fact that, I cut out about 1.5 minutes of footage of this guy. But oh well, I mean, he's gone for good now, so we don't have to worry about him anymore. We'll have to worry about whatever ridiculous thing Melzes cooks up next to implant in a villager's subconscious. But enough of that for now. We finished a dream dungeon, so now it's time for a plot, real-life dungeon. Let's brush our cares aside and worry about that later. Alright, and more importantly, actually, we saved Giles. This is a significant step up from the outcome of most of our recent missions. I mean, nobody died, even as an ancillary side effect to us saving Giles, at least as far as we know. So, this is the first scenario in quite a long while where we entered someone's dream and actually came out feeling good about it as a whole. I guess the last one that actually happened was Wendell's dream. It does start to feel, since this is really about the halfway point in the game, yeah, and from the dialogue, Giles is actually sort of starting to come around to us a little bit, which is nice. Oh, and we proved Maya wrong, which I don't really care about, considering she's supposed to be, the female lead and potentially the love interest, so we don't want to piss her off too much. Anyway, considering this is about the halfway point of the game, we are hitting a point in the narrative where we're supposed to feel like we're making some significant headway and actually starting to experience some overall success, in stopping Melzes, assuming a standard narrative flow. Let's go ahead and save our game and recharge our health, since the game still won't let me sleep in Jess's bedroom. Say hi to you again. Yeah, still just checking to see if there's any different dialogue, but there was not. Check out this chimney. So this is Ludus's house. There's often smoke in there, but when there's not, there's actually sort of a secret passage you can go in, which is why I keep jumping on that. You have a very, very small window to actually access that secret passage before it's closed off to you permanently, and it's required for 100% completion. In fact, it's a good deal of stuff you can miss. Not only that, but actually finding the secret passage and picking up the item you need to get 100% to use it to get 100% completion is the easiest part of that side quest. There's actually a Gilded Falcon at the end of it that I never got when I first played the game that I'm hoping to get during this particular Let's Play. It's just that obnoxious. But we'll deal with that in a couple of episodes. Let's wander up to the north, to the Magiscar. That is not the Magiscar, that's just a hole in the wall that we'll explore later because I can't do everything there yet. There's an herb in that we can access now, but again, I'm maxed out in herbs, so there's no reason to pick that up now. I'm not gonna lie, I got a little lost during this portion of the exploration. I am one of those people who, when they play games, checks maps just fervently all the time. And I do not have a map that I have sort of continual access to for this game, so there is a little bit of wandering. Your guess is as good as mine as to why I was going wherever it was I was going, so I guess we'll find out together. Eventually. There's another one of those Stonehenge teleport archways, and a chest containing herbs. This is actually the direction I went in to get that random Falcon and that random life vessel I got a few episodes ago, trying to round out to 20 life vessels and 15 Gilded Falcons, if you recall. Except I went to the east instead of here where I'm going to the west. This actually takes us north of the coal mine. Again, obviously this is something we could have done as soon as we got the flail, but I opted not to because we weren't headed in this direction. These are the locations we're supposed to put the 7 crests. So eventually, once we have the 7 crests, we'll put them all in these pedestals, and then the path to the final dungeon will open up. Oddly, you can actually put the crests here as you get them, and I'm assuming these 2 altars are placed side by side, specifically because they belong to the first 2 crests you pick up. It's almost like a spoiler of the fact that you don't actually get the 2nd crest. The monkey stole it. There's a chest, and oh god, that's not actually a chest. Those freaking things get me every time. Maybe not so much, obviously, now in post-commentary, but that is incredibly scary for this game when you run into one of those by accident, especially the way it was covered in grass, made it look like it was a legitimate hidden treasure chest. So yeah, by the way, you'll notice there aren't like 5 other pedestals very, conveniently located next to the 2 that we put the crests on. The reason for that is because it's actually a puzzle in the game to find the 7 crests scattered around this general area. We just happened to stumble across 2 of them. Alright, so back to the coal mine. Let's go into this little house. We didn't really explore this the first time around. Not too much to see here. This is supposedly, I guess, the break room for the miners. You can see all their bottles of what I assume would be grape juice if you could actually look at it, in the American version of the game. I suppose it could even be grape juice in the Japanese version. There are some games like Phoenix Wright, or I should say the Ace Attorney Investigations Miles Edgeworth game where the grape juice actually was grape juice is sort of a winking reference to the fact that it often gets translated to grape juice in the American version of the game. Sort of even in the original. Anyway, here's what we're actually here for. You'll notice there's a small opening we can get into with a bomb, some grass to mow down, but we can do that anytime. In we go. There's a small offshoot, a subsection of the mine that we can access now that we have the bomb and the flail. Again, this is just something I'm throwing in here to fill out the video a little bit more so that we aren't doing all of our side quests in one long plot advancement-less stretch of video. Hey, gold bar, something we can actually use as opposed to something we have to leave in the chest. Over here, there's a lot of water slimes in this dungeon. You have no idea. This is one of those rooms you can actually see the block at the top of the steps. It looks really goofy, that gigantic sort of stone block at the top of a bunch of wooden steps. Considering the game has the technology, we've seen it in the lizard lair, for descending wooden steps, I'm surprised they just put a stone block on the top of these. What are you going to do? It serves its purpose. This is very clearly a sort of a space-filling dungeon that solely exists to get you a single item, so there's no reason to be sort of pretentious about it. Alright, so this room. So it was obnoxious enough having to deal with the soul leech and his 80 bow hits this time around, but now I've got to deal with a bunch of water slimes. Notice how they keep respawning. Now, if you sort of wandered into this room by accident, you might actually be led to believe that they will continuously respawn, but they don't. After you kill a large number of any given slime, it stops respawning, but only that specific slime. I believe it's about 10 per slime, meaning overall, you've got to kill something like 50 slimes to clear this room. And again, it isn't immediately obvious that you're making any progress at all, because again, the slimes don't stop spawning until you kill about 10 of a specific one, which means you have to wait for that exact slime. Notice they tend to fall in about the same spot they spawned in before. There's not really another room in this game that has a mechanic like this, so it's a little unintuitive that you're actually accomplishing anything by wading through these legions of slimes. But eventually, after, like I said, about 50 slimes, clear the room and get An herb. Whoop-de-damn-do. Yes, and of course I was actually carrying 9 herbs, but I had taken some small amount of damage, so it was actually worthwhile to bother opening the chest. Thankfully that wasn't actually it. That door in the previous room also opened up, and it leads directly off the side of a cliff, which is kind of funny to me. And down the chimney of the break room. So we can pick up now. I mean, what we were looking for was actually pretty obvious in the way I led into this segment. Yeah, there's our 20th Gilded Falcon in that chest, and thankfully a lever out. So, back to the plot, eventually. I suppose after a little bit more wandering. Let's just briefly bridge the gap between where we were and an area we're familiar with, and then we'll go back up to the top of the cliff towards the Magiscar, or Magiscar, or whatever it is. There's a bunch of signs, I haven't been reading them lately, but they all point toward the Magiscar towards the north. Those 2 chests I passed by on the way to that random Gilded Falcon, they contained 10 guilders each. It was not really worthwhile. I don't know why there were 2 chests containing 10 guilders. There could have been 1 containing 20 guilders. What are you gonna do? And there's a chest over here on the right, yeah, that I also opened up. I believe that was an herb. Let's open this. Alright, what do you have to say? Torla Mountain. So yeah, Torla is the overall name for the region. Remember, we learned that way back on the boat, but we haven't really heard about it a lot. Let's go check out the mountain itself. We'll just show off this map just a little bit. It's like filling in your map in one of those games where you can actually do that, where it actually matters. So yeah, this area is full of that really bizarre, perspectiveless platforming that characterizes this game. So, can't wait to deal with that later, but that's not where we're going right now. Where we actually want to go is around... Is it around? Well, I guess we're going up now, never mind. Shows what I know. Around, down, and we want to get to where that flag is up there, so... That sign actually tells you to go to the right, when Magiscar is actually directly north of where the sign is, so I guess it's kind of wrong. Anyway, here we are. Supposedly this is where the villagers come to pray, but this is the first time they've actually ever come here, to the best of my knowledge. Remember, usually they're gathered around the villagers while they're sick in bed. You know, you can usually account for pretty much everyone in the village at one of those sequences. This is the first time they actually bothered to wander off here. Maybe Giles got really sick, and they were sick for a really long time. That's why they felt like it was worth it to make the journey. But anyway, that's enough of that. So we'll just go wander off. Yes, nice nod from, I guess that's Mead. The only other guy we actually successfully saved, someone important to him. How convenient you should mention. Jess has been spoon-feeding us a lot of really relevant clues about this dungeon. You know, it's almost like he knows what's going on. I mean, I guess he's the token 4th wall breaker for this particular game. But yeah, let's destroy their holy relic and enter the next dungeon. Why not? It's pretty standard hero behavior in video games to just break into everybody's house, break into their churches, their temples, you know, do whatever is necessary to finish the plot. Alright, I'm done with you. You're in the spike pit. Moving on. So these should look really familiar. It should also be pretty obvious what sort of item we need when we run into those briar patches in the overworld, but it also tells you a little bit about what the general theme of this dungeon is going to be. There are torches scattered all over the place, and we're basically going to be ferrying them around the dungeon to burn down those briar patches. You can already see the next torch in this next room over here. But first, some golems. I don't believe there are any new or interesting enemies in this dungeon, so I guess we'll just deal with these guys as they show up. So yeah, we'll move down one ledge, pick up this torch. I said pick it up, thank you. Move onto this floating platform. That switch we'll deal with later. Go to the south, burn down this bush. I don't know why I'm telling you this. It's extremely obvious what we're supposed to be doing. Kill this guy just because. I don't like his face. Or lack of face. Alright, so here's a new item. Or I should say a new platform. It controls in the same, using the D-pad, actually. Although Alundra also moves while he's on it when you hit the D-pad, so it's sort of annoyingly difficult. You have to be really careful not to walk him off onto the spikes. It's kind of a pain. It reminds me of, like, the really crummy-looking things that people use in, like, Super Mario Bros. ROM hacks that sort of behave like that. Really, really simple behavior. Really out-of-place looking item that has a really sort of loose control scheme. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Alright, so there's our torch. This should look awfully familiar. We did this a lot in the Sand Temple. Make a stack of barrels, pull down the torch, and we can burn down the briar patch to get up to the next level. Kill some more golems. Thankfully, the torch burns down all of the nearby briar patches, preventing us from getting stuck and not being able to get through to the ladder. It was a nice bit of foresight on the part of the designers not to have us deal with that. Let's kill these two guys. You notice we can't actually get up to the next ledge, which means somehow we'll have to get the barrels up there. It's actually pretty easy to do, so let's go do that now after I finish wandering around. Plotting out the course of my head, I guess, is what I was doing there. Alright, let's get these two. One, the first thing you have to do is throw them up on this ledge. Again, none of this is particularly difficult. I mean, I'm making it look very hard by screwing up just there. But everything follows very logically, and it's very difficult to accidentally throw one of the barrels, like, down to the next level or something. You know, or backwards, back where it was before. So that's nice. Alright, there we go. So now they're up on the second to last floor. We should be able to stack them up and get to that switch and that chest. Still not enough. We actually need both barrels each time. There we go. On the switch, and so I mean, I thought it was a good idea to dash, but that doesn't actually give you enough time. It's depressing that the dash in this game is actually slower than just walking places, which is incredibly stupid. No, up there is not an exit. That is not an exit, thank you. Back down to the start, you have to go all the way back. This is actually the last puzzle we're going to solve in this particular episode. All there is left to do here. You'll notice there was a save room way back where we burned the bush using the torch from the floating platform, so let's head back there and save my game. Any minute now. Gotta make our way back through this room on this floating platform. Nothing too tough here. Got stuck for a little bit there. Alright, in we go, and back to the main room, back to the hub of the dungeon, so to speak. So we'll save our game here, and we'll finish the rest of the dungeon in the next episode of Let's Play Alundra. I will see you then.